Chrissie is hilarious.
Chrissie, have you ever heard of the comedian Basha K. Ali?
No, that sounds like something you yell out before you blow up a plane.
Basha K. Ali!
30 seconds remaining.
But you know what, Chrissie, to say I dabbled in stand-up is so I haven't been disrespectful to you at all.
I was very confused by the title, Everything Everywhere All at Once, because that's also what we call it when the ass takes off his shirt.
I shouldn't be up here. I should be in school on the other side of the ocean.
Welcome to another episode of the Chrissie Mayr podcast. We are on iTunes, YouTube, Spotify, and SoundCloud. So if you're listening on iTunes, please leave a very nice review with many, many stars. Got a lot of dates coming up that I'm so excited to promote. This weekend. Goodness, I'm going to be in New Orleans. Doing 4 shows at the Comedy House New Orleans on Fulton Street there. Come on out, drink outside, do the thing. Excited to get back to New Orleans. Then I'm headlining in Bridgeport Thursday, October 20th at the Stress Factory Comedy Club out there in Connecticut. Then we got the Comedians at the Compound Show at the Orlando Improv. Come see myself, Anthony Cumia, Gino Bisconti, Alex Stein, Lila Hart. If you're in town for the Geeks and Gamers Friday Night Tights meetup, come to this show. It'll be all the same crew, all the people you know and love. Then I got a weekend out in Long Island, Friday, November 4th and Saturday, November 5th at the Brokerage Comedy Club. Come out, Strong Island. Then we got a Compound Media censored TV show in New York City on Thursday, November 10th. The venue will be announced the day of, because we like to keep everybody on their toes and we don't want the show to get canceled. Then I'll be in New Brunswick on Thursday, November 17th at the Stress Factory Club out there in New Brunswick, New Jersey. Then I got a weekend in San Diego, California, Friday, February 24th and Saturday, February 25th. I'll be at the Mic Drop Comedy Club out there in San Diego. First time back to California since the pandemic. Excited to get back there. Maybe get a tan. Who knows? We'll see. We'll see what I can do. But first, before I bring on our amazing guest, I will do a quick shout out to our sponsor for this episode. Yes. Cue that soothing music. You know how Cushy Dreams is #1 for smokable CBD and Delta 8? I don't even know if you knew that, but they are. You know how their stuff helps with sleep, relaxation, feeling good, and more? You know how you wanted Cushy Dreams to come out with gummies? But not just any gummies. Gummies that will light up your brain like a Christmas tree and make you feel giggly and warm and fuzzy and awesome. Well, they did it. Cushy Dreams now has Delta 9 THC gummies. Yes, that's Delta 9 THC. It's the real deal OG THC, and it ships legally to you, all 50 states. Each gummy contains 10 milligrams of THC, and they come in 4 euphoric flavors. Strawberry, sour watermelon, which I got right here. It smells good. Tastes good, too. Green apple and tangerine. I really like the watermelon ones. I also really like their pre-rolls, because I'm not a person who rolls my own anything. And they come really professionally packaged, these CBD pre-rolls. Super neat. You just throw them in your purse. They also come in 5 packs as well. Boom. I mean, sometimes I can open it. Sometimes I can't. Very good, chic packaging. They've got different blends of CBD, like hustle, create, relax, dream, peace, energy. So whatever mood you want to be in, Cushy Dreams has your back. Check it out. Go to cushydreams.com. That's KUSHY dreams.com. At the checkout, use promo code CMP to get 20% off your next order. Get your gummies. Use promo code CMP. Get that 20% off. Yeah. I wish that music could just play for the whole time. Yeah, maybe that could be the Flagrant Triggers music. guys, if you haven't bought a Chrissie Mayr t-shirt, what are you even waiting for? Go to flagranttriggers.com. Get the Rootin' for Putin, Stuttering John, Johnny Dabbler shirt, Simcast, Mayor. Brand new shirt unveiled yesterday. You sound vaccinated. We got the classic Make America Great Again and Smayer. Get them all. $27 includes shipping. These shirts are super duper soft. And this includes shipping. I already said that. Okay, guys. Enough about me. Because this is about our guest, a guest who I have adored and loved probably my entire comedy career. And that's rare. It's rare when you have on like an old friend. So I'm going to make a huge deal of it. He's a comedian. He is the head writer for Hell of a Week with Charlamagne the God on Comedy Central. His album, How I See It, Volume 1, is available on Apple Music. Welcome to the show, Charles McBee.
What's happening?
Woo! I haven't seen you. I was trying to put together like how we first met. I don't know if it was laughs or punchline.
It might have been one of those, or it just might have been in some, back of a bar somewhere, performing for 4 people and drink tickets. Like it's a blur. After a certain point, it's a blur.
It really is. What year did you start stand up?
I started in 2008. I remember because it was the year Obama got elected, and literally all you had to do was go on stage and go Obama, and everybody would just erupt and applause breaks, and then like 2 years in, you'd be like Obama, and it was crickets, and I was like, oh, okay, that's how comedy works.
Wow, that fast?
Yeah, well, it definitely wasn't the same pop you would get, when he first got elected. The new shine kind of wore off after a couple years.
That is kind of what's great about doing stand-up. It's sometimes you realize the things that get the biggest laughs aren't necessarily jokes per se, but just like what if you can speak to whatever's going on or just making a keen observation. Like you don't always really need a punchline, which is cool.
Which could be a crutch for a lot of comics rely on that, which is why we have terrible comedy specials now. It's just people agreeing in the audience going, yes.
When did you feel like the quality of comedy specials started to really go down?
It might have been around the time that Seinfeld said he wasn't doing colleges, like that whole era where, colleges started booting people out for saying jokes. And then a lot of people were, losing gigs and losing TV shows and stuff like that. And there's a whole argument on, is cancel culture real? Is it not? I just know for comedians specifically, a lot of comedians, if they're not working on the road, they're trying to get TV gigs and trying to get opportunities on TV. And it used to be the rule was kill on the road or kill in real life, and then that's what would get you on TV. Now it doesn't matter if you kill in real life. It matters what you say and the types of things you're talking about. That's what gets you on TV and stuff like that. So I started noticing a shift in that area around that time.
And it's so easy for me to be like, oh, because I am not what the mainstream wants, and I feel like I kind of found my own place. But I do feel
people off now
without feeling like sounding like sour grapes and salty about it. I felt like there was a turn where it went from just who's a talented performer who gets laughs versus it's almost like it became similar to acting where they're like, we are casting roles. And you notice that trend kind of trickled down to even just produce shows in New York City. It's like, well, we have our gay, we have our trans, we have our woman, we have our black guy. And not saying that those people weren't funny or that you couldn't have shows with like token whatever people from whatever group. It just sucks that there's this feeling that you got to have one of each. And then there were some folks that would be like, well, I hate men, so no men on my show. Or I hate white people, so no white people on my show.
Yeah. And as a, potential token on one of these shows, I'm always like, nah, book me because I'm a kill. Like, book me because I'm a destroy and make it hard for anybody to follow me. And I'd much rather for that. I never want to be I wouldn't want to be on, filling in one of those spots. And I know other people who I've talked to, comedians I've talked to, Black, Asian, whatever, like the ones I actually am fans of their work, they feel the same way. It's like, book me because I'm one of the funniest to do it, not because you're trying to fill some quota. But it's like that. I noticed that too when I started doing showcases, which is why I hate showcases now, and I really don't do them. Is because the audience, like the people who are the people behind the scenes, the people who are going to book you on these TV shows and give you these gatekeepers, you would start to notice once you would see the gatekeepers, you would go, oh, these gatekeepers look a lot like the people that are getting booked for these opportunities. So like they're just booking themselves and their
type, basically.
Yeah.
That was a huge thing for me too. Like you're doing comedy a few years, and like for people who don't know what showcases are, like a legit club, like you can do comedy at a bar, at a club, a random back patio, but these showcases usually happen at like the legit clubs. And right, you do a couple of them over the years and you start seeing like, oh, well, you're going to be watched by, I don't know. I mean, I've never done a Montreal audition, but it's like, oh, you're going to be, if it is that, you're going to be watched by Jeff Singer, or I know Rebecca Trent was doing it for a few years or whatever. And then you learn, oh, this is the Fallon or the Colbert person is going to be the audience. So was it Jessica Pilot was booking that for a while. Oh, she's going to, and then you get on edge. You're like, oh, who's going to be watching? And then over the years, you know who these gatekeepers are. And then you see some people like, kind of just, all right, either kissing up to them or just, it's like a natural reaction. You want to be in their good graces because that's the only way up is through this, this pipeline of late night show, Comedy Central special. And it's just like what you said, combination of like do as well as you can on the road, try to make the bulk of your living there, and then impress people with your city spots. And then that's how you get whisked up into TV.
Yeah,
it doesn't like, it doesn't. And even if you try to follow that exact path, it's unless you are what they want, which I think around like the 2010s, there started to be like, okay, we're really looking for types because of the quotas that I think. And that's the thing is, I talk about this shit all the time. People go, oh, you're just salty because you didn't make it, or you didn't get picked to do these late night spots. Yeah. But it's like I definitely tried for a while before I had kind of my own whatever political awakening, whatever you want to call it. And then you do kind of have like a comedy awakening where you're like, oh, you could be so good, but if you're not the type they want, it doesn't matter how hard you try. And then you kind of have to maybe make the decision to break off, or like, okay, these goals have to become less important to you because you'll make yourself nuts. You either have to like take a break and try to make a living, or take a break, start a podcast. Everybody's process is so different, and there's no like one way to make it in comedy.
Yeah, that's the same thing. I mean, even Chris Rock talked about that. That's how he ended up doing Bring the Pain, was because he finally came to the realization that he wasn't going to get any of the token things that all his friends were getting, the late night, the Johnny Carson back then, or even he was on SNL for like a couple seasons but didn't pop, and then he just wasn't getting anything else. And then finally he was like, all right, well, if that's the case, if I'm gonna stop trying to do these commercial things, I'm just do literally whatever the hell I want to do. And that's what gave him the creative freedom to just start saying wild, heinous shit, and that's how we got the Chris Rock that we know now. So, but even now, I mean, you see the Andrew Schultzes, you see like everybody else, like people really taking their career into their own hands and just doing their own thing. Is kind of the wave now, and the industry is starting to really bend to that now because they can't just dangle a special in front of us. Like
they love to dangle. I feel like I spent years trying to get into the good graces of like obese brunette chicks with dark frame glasses. I feel like I spent years doing that. But that's what's great about social media. You can take that's a laugh of someone who knows exactly who I'm talking about.
Lord.
That's but people get power hungry. They get comedy is such a niche group. It's like, and you see it with over and over again. Like the people who are in charge of giving out the specials, giving out the late night spots, like they think they're hot fucking shit. And it's great to just be able to like go around all that. Charles, did you ever get like any of the late night stuff? You probably had more like sort of mainstream success than I did.
I got late night adjacent. I was courted for a couple shows, and then all of a sudden I got ghosted out of nowhere.
I've heard that specifically about Colbert. Like, I think Dave Landau was telling me he was sort of being courted by them. And it was all this back and forth, the shifting of his set and stuff. And then they were giving him such a runaround. He was like, yeah, I'm out.
It's a very strange process of just, and when no one tells you, kind of that's what it is. You take everything very personally because you think it's only happening to you. So you're just like, okay, what did I do wrong? What did I do to deserve being treated like this? But then you realize, oh, that's just what it is. Like this business is just, sometimes it's a cold, soulless business, and you gotta like just kind of have your own life, your own stuff, and know that none of this stuff is personal because it's wild. But I actually take, I'm actually very proud of the fact that I have garnered any success that I've had without having to do the, checking off the boxes of what everyone else has to do. Not that I wouldn't be happy to do a late night or whatever, but the fact that I'm able to say like, no, I've never been on a list. I've never done any late night.
The lists. Yeah. And then you realize the lists are generated by management. It's not people out there like, let me find a talented person performing at a hole in the wall and uplift them. It's like, no, it's like these lists are whoever's managing whatever 10 comics at William Morris or like whatever the top agencies are. It's like they put through their people and that's who the articles are written about.
It
takes you years to be like, oh, fuck.
Yeah. It doesn't take away, I'm not taking away credit from people who are on the list because there's definitely people who are on there who I'm like, oh yeah, they're funny as shit. Definitely. But there's also people who are like, what? Wait, what? And you're like, you kind of see the bigger picture. And God bless them if you make a list or you make a this or that or a showcase or whatever, do your thing. Because I'm never hating on anybody's success, but at the same time,
right,
you have to realize that it's not. It doesn't speak to you if you didn't make that list. It doesn't speak to your talent or to, who you are as an artist or as a comedian. If you don't make the showcase or the list, it really doesn't matter at all.
It's a good thing to let go of because like you kind of let go of like shame because you start going, oh, I've been in it this many years and I didn't reach this or this. And then on the flip side, you see people who have been like on the comics to watch list for like 5 years. It's like, we've been watching this person for years. Nothing's been happening. We're all watching them.
They have a very old face. This is a new face.
Yeah. A lot of old faces on the new faces.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm so impressed with everything that you've accomplished. And now being a writer for Charlamagne on a Comedy Central show is a huge deal. And you've had this job like a little over a year now.
Yeah. So we started out, it was one version of the show, but then we switched up. It was The God's Honest Truth, and then we switched the format and everything. So it's basically a whole entire new show. So now it's a hell of a week. And yeah, this episode, we got 7 episodes in for this season. So coming up on the 8th episode, we've been able to make some noise. So with some of the interviews and some of the topics that we've talked about. So far, so good. I never know what, networks and suits want or whatever. I just try to do the best job possible and have fun and do my thing and leave it to the network gods.
Okay. I'm wondering what the process is like. Cause I remember when I was writing for like Punchline, it's just a few episodes, but like little things that you wouldn't be able to guess that they would have a problem with. Like I think it was Fox, and they told me like I had a joke that had the word Viagra in it, and they're like, no, you can't say Viagra. Yeah. I'm like, what? I have to say blue pills. It's like, is it the branding? And you just don't know until you go through it. So do you feel like ever censored with your joke writing process? Do you just submit to them and they pick what they want? Or like, how much control do you feel like you have over what comes out?
Well, it's, it goes back and forth. I will say, even though we give S&P and S&P standards and practices, even though we give them shit on our show, they actually let us get away with a lot of stuff. I mean, we're Comedy Central, so we're, you know, it's basic cable show, so you get away with a lot more than you would on a Fox or you know network like NBC or something like that. And then the time that you come on affects that as well. We come on at 11:30 as opposed to like prime time, so that allows you to do way more things than you would otherwise. But as far as that, I mean, there's just things you just have to, you know, look out for. That S&P really isn't there to cram your fun, even though that's how we may respond to them. They're really there to keep us, as it will, keep the show or the network from being sued and being liable for stuff. There's just a lot of unfun laws and stuff that we have to abide by. So we have to say allegedly a lot, and you know, you have to. And then there's branding, like you said with the Viagra. It might be a branding thing where it's like you literally can't name certain items because they may advertise for the show, or they may be in competition. You can't look like you're promoting a product because it may be in competition with one of your other advertisers. Like all that stuff that we don't care about, but other people are paid to care about it. That may affect how you say a joke or whatnot. But then it might just come down to, no, we're not going to let you say it. And it just might just be that. It might go up to the higher ups and they just go, no, we don't want the heat. We don't want you. You can't say that. And you just have to go, fine, whatever.
What do you feel are the biggest challenges of writing for the show?
I'm gonna be completely honest with you. Like this season, there hasn't been, as far as creatively, there really hasn't been that many challenges. Last season, it was a little more challenging, I think, because it was a different format. So it was more monologue. It was, and when I say monologue, I mean more John Oliver style. And so it was more essay style, if you will. So that could be challenging, not because it was hard to do, but just because there were a lot more people whose opinions had to be considered. So you're writing an essay, but you're including several different opinions.
Oh, right.
Of people who are above you. And so it just makes for, you know, to me personally, it doesn't make for a clear, concise, fun essay. It makes for a lot of different opinions.
Right, because how many writers are there? Like, how many cooks are in the kitchen over there?
Well, it's not the writers. Like, I'm the head writer, so everything goes through me ultimately. But then it has to go out to EPs and, you know, and obviously Charlamagne's voice is the biggest voice, but there's a lot of different EPs and a lot of different stuff who have their own opinion, and then it goes to network, and network might have their opinion. So it's just trying to please many masters. Which can be difficult. I mean, you do the best you can, but it can be difficult at times if people have different opinions. This season is a lot smoother because the format is more joke heavy, and we have a panel of comedians and experts and journalists that come on to like really chop it up and talk it out. So we set it up with jokes, and then they go and Charlamagne just conducts his panel and his interviews. So it's less on us to give this thoughtful, you know, nuanced argument, and it's more on us to be funny, give Char a bunch of jokes, set up the story, and then let him take it from there. Which is
the format is, and I've watched a few episodes. Like, this new format is very similar to, I think, like how Gutfeld does his show, where it's like he's got his opening, like kind of monologue, and then it goes out to the guests on the panel. What is the process like for the guests? Like, will you send them the topics the morning of or the night before? And like, you know, what kind of direction would you give them?
We send them the topics. We may even we don't necessarily give them specific questions to them, but we may give them an idea of the type of questions we'll be asking, you know, just so they kind of have an idea of what we'll be talking about. And I don't know exactly. That's usually the producers that sends that. They probably send it out maybe the night before, just to give them a little time to chew on it. Unless there's obviously a topic, because we're topical, there might be a topic that happens that day that we, you know, put in that day. And in that case, they may brief them at the studio, like while the guests are there, they'll just brief them in real time. But other than that, that's pretty much the process with the guests.
Yeah, and there's still like a lot of room for improv. Like I think Charlamagne is really good at that. Like he you guys had Ray J on recently and he was, he was, and I don't know, I really appreciate how he asked him like the direct, honest questions that I think a lot of other people, like just in his nature, the more I've been watching, the more I appreciate about him is like he doesn't beat around the bush. Like he's not afraid to ask a direct question and be honest and blunt. And I'm like, that's really awesome. And he was asking him something. Oh God, and he improvised a line that was so funny. Like I think Ray J said something like, I'm not gonna go down like that. He's like, and then Charlamagne was like, going down, that's why we're all here. Like we saw you go down, meaning like on Kim.
Yeah.
I'm obviously butchering that line. And he just straight up was like, how much money have you made off the sex tape? And like he and this has been kind of, I guess, a recent sort of, so here's the interview with Charlamagne and Ray J, and this was kind of an exciting interview. I'm not going to play any of it because I'm going to get dinged, but this article came out. People are talking about this. Comedy Central too scared to air Charlamagne's interview with Ray J about Kardashians and the sex tape. I don't know how long of the interview was initially, but they aired about like 6.5 minutes of it. So here's the article. It's been one hell of a week for Charlamagne the God, and Ray J, literally the host of the Comedy Central series, sat down with the I Hit It First rapper. It's just so funny because immediately, like, this guy Ray J sits down. I don't know very much about him, like, other than the sex tape. He just wants to like plug the heck out of his earbuds, and I'm just like, I don't know. To me, it comes off a little like schlocky. It's a little bit like, okay, like maybe have a conversation first and see if there's like an organic way to plug your thing. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. So they were in discussions. They were talking about that he was in cahoots with the Kardashian Jenner clan as it pertains to the infamous sex tape that some people believe launched the iconic family into stardom. With the Kardashians, a recent series returning to Hulu for its second season, the social media chatter between the parties appeared to be good press. While there were some burning questions answered, Charlamagne the God said, "We aired what we could. We're going to have to bring Ray J on Breakfast Club, or I'll have him on Brilliant Idiots, or sit down with him one-on-one to have a real conversation, because the way the Kardashians got TV executives shook, the way they have network shook, it's things Ray J said that they wouldn't let us air. They're scared because they're scared of the wrath of the Kardashians." And I was like, oh, man. I'm like, what could they this just seems like, it's like a big kind of like roadblock, because it's another thing, like it's got to pass through so many different hands. While Ray J acknowledged that the cahoots idea makes sense. So basically the news about this was that the sex tape was a planned release. It was not a leak. And Ray J mentioned, on the part that was aired that, okay, some legal stuff is going to be happening, like whatever that means. I mean, I feel like ultimately it's a net positive for him, the sex tape, whether it was on purpose or a planned leak. Like, we wouldn't know who he is without this sex tape. So,
well, Black people knew who he was, but yeah, you might not have.
Just me.
You might not know who he is without this sex tape.
White girls such as myself. True. What was he? Was he a musician?
Yeah, but he's more, I mean, he gets teased about it, but he's more famous for being Brandy's younger brother back.
Oh, he's Brandy's younger brother. Okay, I know who she is.
Yeah. But yeah, he put out some albums and stuff, and he acted in a couple things. He actually acted in Brandy's sitcom back in the day, Moesha. But he always grew up being known as like Brandy's younger brother. Now he's on Love and Hip Hop and all that kind of stuff.
Okay. Wow. And I was familiar with the show. Okay. He continued by pointing out that he is still making money off the sex tape, but he has not been sued for anything linked to it, all of which he believes confirms his claims. He also criticized momager Kris Jenner as the mastermind of the distribution of the sex tape in an effort to help her own family, but ruin his. Ray J said, "I just want to clear my name, even if that little small thing in there that gotta go. I'm fighting for my kids to know that their daddy is a great person who respects everybody." In reference, but what exactly does he have to fight here? Like just the idea that it was a planned release, like that he was in on that.
Yeah, because so the thing is, the way it came out initially, way back in the day when the tape came out, was that Ray J leaked the tape, right? Like Ray J had sex with Kim Kardashian, and then he leaked the tape, and this poor Kim, and he's
that it was like revenge porn, or that it was like,
yeah. And so it was he kind of had this stench on him all this time of just like he kind of did this kind of douchey thing. And now he's come out, and they keep bringing it up every so often as a storyline or, you know, things of that nature. And finally, Ray J was like, look, you guys keep bringing this up as a storyline. I've let you kind of, you know, get away with it. Now I'm like putting it all out there that actually, and this is his words, that Kris Jenner was really behind the tape coming out and was really the mastermind behind the whole thing. And so that's kind of where the whole, and Ray J went to his Instagram live and, you know, went on his long rant about it. And so that's kind of where it is now. And that's why he's saying like, they haven't sued me, he's saying like, look, I'm saying all this and they haven't sued me. So clearly it's true. Basically, the reason he came on, he was basically saying like, he just wants, now he has kids. This was, you know, however many years ago. Now he has kids and stuff, and he wants this kind of thing to be off of his, you know, his name or kind of his name.
Yeah, that makes sense. Is this the first time that you had to like cut part of an interview, or, you know, I guess the Kardashians, like they reached out, or like, so how does that process work? Like you have the interview, and then so how did the Kardashians like have a say in what was cut or what should be cut?
So here's what I can and will say. So normally the interviews are taped longer, a little longer, just because, you know, this conversation might go longer, but we're literally only able to air like 6 minutes of it for linear TV. So it's not really that much of a scandal in that sense. But sometimes what we'll do, if the interview is really great, we'll put the whole thing out online. There were certain things that Ray said that I won't say. I'll just go off of what Charlamagne said. I'll take his lead. Basically, there were people in the network organization that did not want those things being aired. Now, why? I'm not privy to that information. I didn't get to have a personal conversation with them. Speculation is, don't want to make, you know, Kardashians upset. Maybe there's relationships. I have no idea. I don't know. All I do know is I get the note in the edit, cut that out. And we go, why? It's just like, cut it out. So then I think that's why Charlamagne said that, because he's frustrated. He's one of the greatest interviewers we have on the planet. He's in the Radio Hall of Fame. And so when, you know, his work or what he does best is compromised, or what he feels is compromised, then yeah, he's gonna speak his mind. So
yeah, especially if he feels like he did a good job interviewing him. So is there a live studio audience with this?
Yeah, there's a live studio audience, but we take everybody's phones.
Oh, because I was gonna say, like, what if the spicy parts that you cut out, somebody who was there goes, oh, I know what he said.
They could. I mean, you know, there is an audience there, so they could technically be like, "Oh yeah, I was there." Blah 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 blah. But I mean,
I was there, and he said X, Y, Z. Right, and then you guys aren't liable for that, right? Because you just they're people.
Whatever. I think it's literally us airing the footage and blah blah blah. I don't know. I don't know.
You just make the jokes
to be held responsible for it. I guess I don't know.
How did they find you? Like how did they kind of discover you and pick you up?
Well, I've been in kind of the Viacom, form is now Paramount, but I was in the Viacom system for a little while working on like other shows that they have. And so it's basically all relationships, you know. I came up with literally our showrunner, Rachel. I came up with her at Viacom. So she already knew me, already knew her.
Like from stand-up, or you mean from writing on other shows?
Writing. Like she was she was a producer, and she came up at like Wild and Now and like a bunch of other stuff. And I was writing for, you know, a bunch of different shows and working on different shows. Like I worked on Wild and Now. I worked on Charlamagne's old show, Uncommon Sense, back in the day, and like some other stuff, like the VMAs and all that kind of stuff. And so you just kind of, you know people and you know each other. And so when Rach got positioned as showrunner, she didn't necessarily say you got the job, but it was more so, hey, submit, just submit for a position. I was like, yeah, of course. So I submitted a packet, and then long story short, she had me meet with some of the other EPs, a couple of the EPs I had known from working at Viacom before. And then I had to meet with EPs, and then she said that I was being considered for head writer. I was only being considered for writer at first, and then it was like head writer.
Whoa.
Packet, yeah. And then so I had to meet with Charlamagne and just get a rapport again, because I hadn't talked to him in a while since I had worked on his other show. So just get that rapport and talk about the show and my ideas for the show. And then funny enough, she said, all right, now you got to meet with Steven. And I was like, all right. And I told my sister, who was a producer on other shows, I was like, yeah, I got to meet with some dude named Steven. She was like, you mean Colbert? And I was like, no, she would have said Colbert. And then she was like, ask her if it's Colbert. And then so I texted the showrunner. I was like, did you mean Stephen Colbert? And she was just like, yeah. And I was like, you should leave Colbert. Yeah.
There's a lot of Stevens.
Yeah. But by then she had already talked to him for so long that she just was on a first name basis. I'm like, I'm sorry. He's still like a comedic icon to me. So yeah, I had to meet, because he's an executive producer on the show. So I had to meet. Oh wow. I didn't know that. Yeah, so I had to meet with him virtually. I met with him virtually, but basically I met with him virtually. I was super nervous.
Were you nervous? Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I was very nervous.
And this is during still pandemic-y time. So this is like last spring.
Yeah,
early spring.
Totally. But what made it cool was he pops up. First of all, he pops up on screen, and my first thought is like, my TV is talking to me. Like it looked like it was very surreal and weird to have like somebody that you see on TV all the time just all of a sudden be like, "Hi, Charles." Like, wait, what?
Wow.
But he's holding this piece of paper around, right, as he's talking, like, yeah, blah, blah, blah. But then finally he goes, well, I just want to say that this packet is one of the best packets I've ever read. And I was like, oh,
wow.
Yeah, like he was like, yo, Stephen Colbert read my words and my jokes, and he's telling me it's one of the best things he's read. So
wow.
Yeah, it was wild. It was very
cool.
surreal. Very surreal. And he just was like, I'm here for you. I'm here to give you advice, anything you need. And it was basically on and popping from there. So
did you give you a cell phone or anything like that? Like text me anytime, like that kind of a thing?
I didn't graduate to cell phone, but email. And then, he would pop into the studio, and I would go over to Ed Sullivan Theater and pop in there and like all that kind of stuff. So like, yeah, it's a lot of one-on-ones, a lot of FaceTime. So yeah, all good stuff. But that's pretty much how it happened. It was me hearing about the show, and then just submitting a packet. But based on that, it just kind of went up the ranks. Yeah.
What did they want you to, like, what was in the packet? Like, what did they want you to give them?
It was actually a very simple packet, which I prefer. I hate packets that's like 5 pages long and you got to like solve in a Rubik's Cube and like all that kind of stuff. It was take something off the news and just go in on it on a funny
like a rant.
Like a rant, yeah, basically like a rant. And so what made it, I think, better for me was the fact that by the time I submitted mine, it was a little later than the deadline. So everybody that submitted, because I ended up having to go back and read all the other packets once I got the job as head writer.
Wow.
The other packets. So, and it was like over 300 submissions. So all the other packets were, and not that it's their fault, but you taking the headline. So they were all kind of the same thing. And I remember the main headline at that point was Gorilla Glue Girl.
Okay, so yeah. She put it in her hair.
Yeah. It was a lot of different takes on Gorilla Glue Girl and stuff, which is fine. Some of them were sucked and some of them were great. But mine was, because it was later, mine was on Dr. Seuss being canceled. And so I think it was just a fresh, off the top, it was just a fresh topic at the time. But yeah, that was mine. I picked that and I just did a breakdown. And what Steven said he liked a lot about it was I was able to break down the story, fill it with jokes, but also come at it from both sides and not just, oh, here's my liberal side or here's my other side. Because I really honestly could give a shit either way. I'm politically fluid, if you will. So is whatever. So I'm always attacking things from both sides, and he really appreciated the fact of how the way I did that. So
That's great. Yeah, not a lot of people do that. You kind of get settled on your opinions. Did you get the sense that did they give you any direction, like try to attack it from both sides? Like, did you get any sense at any time during the process, like that they cared what your politics were, or?
no, the packet itself was just take a topic, go off. You know, just like, you know, take a time. I forget exactly how I was worded, but basically break it down, you know, with jokes, but like go off on it. And that was it. There was no like attack it from a political side or anything like that, especially because it's Charlamagne. And even though I think Charlamagne votes more democratically, he, like, depending on the subject, he can come at it from a more conservative, definitely a more conservative perspective on a lot of things. So like, you really do yourself a disservice trying to predict, you know, particularly writing for Char, thinking that I'm gonna just go from a liberal standpoint because that's what he's gonna do. It's like, no, depending on what it is, he'll go whichever way makes the most sense to him.
Do you get the sense that the show audience is more democratic?
It's weird. It's a good question because it's a strange balance, because on the one hand, it's like it's Charlamagne, so there's his audience, there's his, you know, people that he's bringing in, but then there's also Comedy Central, and we're coming off of The Daily Show, so it's like very liberal, but then we're kind of bringing in our, you know, middle ground, you know, liberal but maybe conservative on certain things, and so we're trying to find that balance. But overall, we're in a very liberal left playing field. You know, I don't know if Daily Show would consider themselves liberal, but I would say it's safe to say it's a liberal audience. So we're in that, somewhere in that pocket.
I wonder if it's a concern. Like, I wonder if it's something like the higher ups think about, like they don't want to turn off the audience that's leading into the show. Like if it's, you know, they don't want to, I wonder if that's a consideration. Like, oh, we want to turn off like X amount of liberal viewers that are coming off the Daily Show to watch us.
I mean, I would say it's always a consideration no matter what network it is. But I don't think it's liberal conservative. I think it's just viewers. Like, if viewers are coming, I think their networks are happy. So if, you know, regardless of the viewers, it's like, all right, you can turn off liberal viewers, but you better replace them with some other.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Do you feel like you ever have to like answer for Charlamagne's like spicy takes or controversial opinions, or like do you feel like people go to you for like answers, or do you feel like a sense they have to like answer or speak for him or anything like that? Because sometimes I'll have on like a spicy guest and then someone will be like, oh, well, they said X, Y, and Z, and like you let them say that or something. Like, or do you feel like as a writer you're a bit distanced from?
I mean, one thing about Char, and I think that's why maybe, I don't know, I can't speak. Well, speaking of speaking for him, I can't speak for him in this, but I genuinely don't care. Like, people can say whatever they want. Like, if there's something, because there are things that he might say that I might disagree with. And I'll be like, well, you know, and they might go, oh, he said this. I'm like, well, that's his opinion, and he's entitled to his opinion. But there's a lot of things that he says that I'm like, yeah, I totally, even if I'm not 100% in agreement, I totally get where you're coming from, and I don't think that's such a crazy idea. So we're pretty aligned in a lot of things, and some things we might not be aligned in. But the idea that somebody would come to me and try and check me on something Charlamagne would say, that would be a fun time for me. I get a lot of shit off my chest.
Have you ever gotten like, I don't know, like, have people ever come after you like online or anywhere for like a joke you've written or something that happened on the show? Do you feel like you've ever gotten, you know, any blowback?
Here's the thing. I don't check my mentions. So probably, but I don't check them. I don't check my mentions at all. Yeah, I turn off that part of me that like cares, because the thing is, like, the jokes that we write, I mean, we're not just shooting off the hip. Like, it's a whole room, there's a whole staff. We do the jokes in the room with the whole team, and like the whole staff is in the room, and so we bounce them off of different people. We a very heavy female staff, so it's just like, if something's is this misogynistic? Is Shar gonna get crazy pushback off this, or is this homophobic? Like, whatever the case is, we got enough people to go, I don't know. And by the time Shar says it out of his mouth, we've given him all the what ifs.
Okay.
So it's pretty vetted. But even if somebody still wants to be offended, it's like, I mean, it's what it is.
Yeah, I'm sure there are times where like the staff might be like, oh, this might be misogynistic or homophobic, and I'm sure he'll be like, but I think it's funny and I'm gonna say it. Like, I feel like ultimately it's his choice, or do you feel like it's ultimately your choice? Or
No. It's ultimately his choice. Make no doubt about it. Shard has the last final say on what he says and what goes out. So I can write it up, but he's gonna say what he wants to say. And sometimes he'll just add things in. He'll be like, I want to say this too.
Yeah.
All right. If anything, we'll try and maybe punch it up or shape it more into like a joke, but like he'll be in the script and he'll put what he wants and say what he wants as well. So yeah, it's his show, so he gets final say.
He's really quick on his feet. And it's also like he can handle backlash. Like, he's been doing this a long time. He's a pro. Ultimately, I think he has kind of reached like a level of being uncancelable just for how long he's been around and how talented he is. Do you ever feel like, as a writer on a show, do you ever get like a pang of like, oh, I wish I could have told that joke, or like, oh, like, not that you're not getting credit for it, but it's like you're also a stand-up, so that feeling of saying a joke on stage, it crushes and you get that rush. Is there ever moments of that?
I'm gonna be totally honest. I don't even use that rule. If it works on the show, there's a good chance I'll probably still do it in my act. Like,
okay, cool.
If somebody else wrote it in the room, that's different. But if I wrote the joke and it crushes on the show or whatever, I'll still do it on stage. I don't care.
Good for you. That's great.
Charlamagne did that joke. Yeah, I know. I wrote it. Like,
who wrote it? Oh, that's awesome. Okay, that's really good that you don't feel like you have to burn, not like they're burning jokes on the show, but that you can't use them in your set. That's good.
No, I personally, I mean, I don't know how other people do it, but I personally don't care. If I wrote it, so it's mine. And it's not like it'd be different if it was a stand-up comedian. If I was writing for another stand-up comedian, that's different. But Shar doesn't consider himself a stand-up comedian. So if I was writing for, I don't even know there's just no stand-up comedians that have late night shows. So I don't even know what that example would be. But if I was writing for another stand-up comedian, then then it would be like, okay, well, that's his joke now. But because it's Shar and he's not gonna go on tour and do these jokes or whatever, I can people understand that someone else is writing those jokes for him. So
okay. Yeah. Do you guys ever think of do you ever do any like live shows? Like, I could see you guys doing like a touring show. I mean, if maybe you do it already, but like you have like a lot of comics on the panel. Like, you could totally do a.
Yeah, totally. And I have to take back what I just said. Trevor Noah is a stand-up, so I guess.
Oh, right.
Somebody writes for him, they're probably not going to do the same jokes, or maybe they do. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, I think right now, because television is so fickle, I just want to make sure that we're in a good space as far as like, shows getting another season and, things of that nature. And we're kind of on a roll. Maybe we'll do it like, during a hiatus or something like that. Okay. We'll probably start doing stuff like that. But like right now, it's just all hands on deck on making sure that the show is, is popping.
And like, when you say like TV is fickle right now, do you mean in terms of like, are you always worried about like number of viewers, or do you feel like there's so many options now with streaming services?
Yeah, it's just all the above. You're just like, I mean, we're getting great, looks and great write-ups, and people seem to really enjoy the show, but you just don't you literally just don't know. So you can't, unless you're working on like The View or something like that,
Mhm.
where it's like such a out of this world hit out the gate. There is no stability in television or in show business in general, as you know. So I'm always, so before going on like, hey, we're gonna go on a hell of a week tour, like let's make sure we get like 3 more seasons locked in, and let's
Okay.
make sure that we're like us locked in and everything is good. Otherwise we end up looking a little silly.
Be like, it was a hell of a week, and now we're on tour.
Right, exactly.
We got a question. Oh, and this is not a question, more of a comment from NVIDIA. You know who was a good comic? Fozzie Bear. I don't understand that fully.
No, I understand it. Fozzie Bear technically was a comic on Muppets, right?
Oh, was he?
Yeah, he was technically a stand-up comedian on the Muppets. Fozzie Bear was pretty funny. I'm not
How
gonna
did
lie.
I miss that?
However, I will say, even though this wasn't a Muppet, but I always thought that Grover from Sesame Street was way funnier than Fozzie Bear. Way funny.
Which one was Grover?
The blue one.
How am I forgetting what the Sesame Street characters look like? Grover.
For crying out
Oh,
loud.
I see. Yeah, of course. He's basically Blue Elmo.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Okay, wow. How do you handle, like, what's your process like for, like, I guess you kind of described it a little bit, like if a joke kills on the show, you'll be like, great, I'll use that in my act. But other than that, like, what is your kind of like writing process for the show versus your stand-up?
For the show, literally like everything is for the show right now. Like once we're in season, it's constantly show. So I'm always on Twitter. I'm always watching the news. I'm always looking at what's going on different blog sites, just seeing what's trending, what are people talking about, what conversations can we have, and then and we get together. Monday we pitch ideas, we pitch stories, and by Tuesday we have kind of a more solidified idea of what stories we're going to do, and then that's when we start going in on jokes and we start writing a script and putting jokes in, and then by Wednesday we have a pretty locked idea. Unless there's something crazy going on, we have a locked idea of what the script is, and so we're just punching up the jokes. And then of course Thursday, unless there's something that's breaking news, we'll go over the script one more time to just punch up the jokes. We're always punching up jokes. Can this be funnier? Oh, this is funnier. This is funnier. This is funnier. And so we'll have a punch up party the morning / afternoon on Thursday, and then we tape live. Well, not live to tape. We tape on Thursday afternoons. Then we edit Thursday evening, early Thursday evening, and then we air Thursday night. So it's a pretty fast process.
So what time are you getting in the morning, and then what time do you get to leave?
On Thursday or just
yeah, what are your hours generally through the week?
It's
or
not crazy.
By day?
It's not crazy. As you can see, it's Monday and I'm at the crib. So we work virtually on Monday. And then Tuesday, I'll get in. We writers will get in at like 10:30, but I get in at like 10. Me and the other EPs, I'll get there at 10 o'clock. And then we leave 6:30, but sometimes earlier, like on a Tuesday, we might leave at 5. It's not super crazy. Wednesday, I'll stay a little later just to make sure that everything is looking good, just because the show is the next day. So I want to make sure everything is looking good. But even on Wednesdays, I'll leave, 6:30, something like that. And a lot of times, I mean, we really have actually a fun group. It's not super stressful or super crazy. So a lot of times people will stay later voluntarily just for the hang. So like sometimes writers will stay till like 7 at night just to shoot the shit and talk shit. Yeah.
Are there a lot of other stand-ups on the writing crew?
Not right now. The only other stand-up is Andre D. Thompson.
Mm-hmm.
And there might be a couple. I think there's a couple who do stand-up in like other departments. But as far as the writers, just me and Andre that do stand-up.
Okay, cool. Who have been your favorite 3 guests on the show?
Wow. You know what? Michael Rappaport was fun. It wasn't like, I don't think it got a ton of like crazy pickup, but he was just fun to have because he just says whatever. And he was a cool guy. I'm trying to think who else. We had Kevin Hart on last season, and he was great. Issa Rae, she was cool. She was very cool. Yeah, I don't really fan out. You know what I mean?
Okay, right,
Like,
because you do comedy, and it's like you kind of are seeing famous people semi-frequently.
yeah. So it's not really anybody that came. I mean, everybody was not, everybody's been nice, pleasant. Oh, Fat Joe is always fun to have on because he'll tell stories and he's a good time. So probably so far Fat Joe. But yeah, other than that, I don't usually trip over it.
You don't have to say like, yeah, maybe you can't say who your least favorite were, but what guests do you feel like this like the audience maybe had a negative reaction to?
So I'm not copping a plea here. Honestly, I will say this. So far, no one, but that doesn't mean that won't change because we're really trying to bring on like some of everybody. So there's a good chance that you'll see someone on there that the audience or that will be like, oh, hell no, blah, 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 blah. But so far, like it hasn't been anybody that the audience necessarily has had a negative reaction to. But I have a feeling that that's going to change soon for the better. I mean, for us, it'll be great because everybody will be talking, but
because they're pretty vocal. Like you'll hear if they're in agreement with something that somebody says, or like that's kind of like active listening.
But we really want to have like people who have different opinions and different, political sides and stuff like that. So far, sometimes it'll be a little difficult to get like conservatives to come on. I don't know if they think they're gonna get ambushed or something like that or whatever. But like we want people from like all sides. So I think once that happens, maybe you'll hear people start going, oh yeah, this person on or whatever. But as far as internally, like the show, like we want everybody that makes sense that will have a good conversation. So.
And I hear that from both sides. Like if there is a more right-leaning show, I've heard like even it's not a comedy show, but like even like with Tim Pool, they have a hard time getting more left-leaning guests on. And so it's like it's true on both sides. Like everybody's afraid of being ambushed, I guess.
Well, I think I know the left because I do Jimmy's show a lot over at Fox. And
Jimmy Fallon's show?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I always get crap. So I think the left are afraid of what their friends or what their colleagues will say if they're associated with.
Like judgment from their peers.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that might be what it is for the left, not being on right-leaning shows or whatever.
That makes sense. Do you send like, okay, so after your typical day, like throughout the week, you're writing, do you feel like you have the energy to go out and do spots, or like, is that on a little bit of a different schedule versus when you're kind of like in the off season?
Last year, it was like, I was doing like barely doing any spots, but it was a whole different show. So I was so mentally drained. Now is way different. Like now I'll still go out. I do at least one spot a night. On the weekends more, but during the week, at least one. And then I'm good with that. Whereas before it'd be like, I'm 3-5 spots.
Oh yeah. You're working those comedy muscles by writing. I mean, you're probably doing more work and writing more jokes in this job than before.
Yeah. I'm good. Like one spot on a Tuesday, I'm like, all right, I'm good. And so I actually enjoy coming home at a reasonable hour and like just vegging out or just going to sleep or having dinner or whatever. So yeah, now during the season, it'll be like one spot during the week, and then Fridays and Saturdays I'll turn up and do maybe 2 or 3 spots or whatnot.
Okay.
And then Sundays I actually don't, unless it's a really good show, I actually tend to not take spots on a Sunday. Like Sundays are like my day to be a person.
It's good to have a day to just be like, look at the wall or like do laundry, like just
Yeah.
space out. What shows or clubs are you liking to get up most at like right now?
Gotham really is my home club, and they show me the most love. I feel like it's so funny because post pandemic or pandemic, as you say, is like the whole scene changed in New York City. So
It
like
really did.
and different, all this kind of stuff, and I just didn't have the energy or the care to like try to hustle and schmooze all over again. So like I'm mostly at Gotham. But I'll still do like other independent shows around the city, a lot of independent shows. And then I'm at Caroline's for the first time since coming back since
Oh
things
wow. Congrats.
I haven't been at Caroline's since before, lockdown. So like I'll be back there in a couple of weeks. But that's pretty much as far as the clubs go, it's like Gotham is like always just home base for me.
Honestly, even if you have one good club that you can get up at semi regularly, like that's all you need, really. It's like, okay, I have my club audience reception. Like I know how you get a sense of like, all right. And then okay, if you do an indie or a produced show here and there just for an extra, like you're good. You get a good sense of it.
Yeah, I always say I have my practice shows, my workout rooms where I go work out new material. I go to bomb and feel fine about it. And then I take the best of that and then I go to like Gotham or West Side Comedy Club. Shout out to them. They're cool. And I go there and like actually go, okay, these are the jokes that are actually good. And then I try them there and go from there.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I'm so proud of you, Charles. You're really crushing it. I love it.
Listen, I appreciate it, and despite anyone being mad at me for saying this, I don't care. I like seeing you piss people off, regardless political leanings, this, that, and the third. Just comic to comic, I like seeing comics ruffle feathers and forcing people to actually, have conversations and calling people out on their hypocrisy. So shout out to you.
Thanks, Charles. Appreciate it, bro.
Yeah,
Where can people follow you? Any shows to plug other than checking out your album on Apple Music, which is called How I See It, Volume 1?
Yeah, How I See It. Everything is at Charles McBee. So Twitter's, all the Instagrams, the TikToks is at Charles McBee. And yeah, just tell a friend, tune into Hell of a Week, Comedy Central, 11:30 Thursdays after the Daily Show. I would say stream it on Paramount Plus, but no, watch it live on Comedy Central.
Watch it live. What else are you doing? What time is it on?
Yeah, watch it.
What time is it on?
Oh, 11:30 on Thursday.
11:30. Okay. That's a good time. All right, cool. Charles, thank you so much for coming on. I'm so happy for you. I love seeing you win. It's great. I don't know. I feel like I have a special like love for people you kind of come up with, and it's always good to see you busy.
Absolutely. Same.
Thank you to the chat. Until next